and ask Lisa to be this first pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from our meeting of June 18.
I have 2 corrections on the minutes.
Okay, let's all pull the minutes out in front of us so we can see.
Not correction, more an addition. I want to added that I was told I was going to receive correspondence of the local labor waivers at Flagship. I have yet to receive those emails. And the second one was to get a hard copy of my fiduciary liability insurance as a member of the Finance Committee. I wanted a hard copy of my insurance policy.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, you want to follow up on that? Okay. That's just repeating your request.
Yeah.
And that you haven't received them. Because it's not actually changing the minutes.
It's just
Right.
an addition.
Just an
Yeah,
update.
in addition to the minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll make those and then we can approve subject to the changes.
Okay, great. All right, is there a motion then to approve?
Make a motion.
I'll second.
Moved by Lisa, seconded by Troy. Any other comments, changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Loki Brill, Local Labor Monitoring Report.
Kevin Loki is unable to be with us today, so I'm going to go ahead and read through Kevin's report from Loki Brill for the month of June 2024. This report covers site visits between June 1st, 2024 and June 30th of 2024. During this period, Loki Brill made 67 monthly site visits. During this period, Loki Brill made 7 follow-up visits. Loki Brill checked for residents with 858 workers. Of those workers, there were 22 non-compliant. 20 of those instances were due to no proof of residence. First off, at the 49 East Avenue LLC project, dated June 6, 2024, there were 2 workers on site from North Star who did not have ID, and they were compliant on a follow-up visit the next day. On June 10th, at the Gannett Partners 1 LLC project, Armitage without ID, 1 worker from GP Flooring without ID, 2 workers from VRD without ID. The 3 workers were compliant on follow-up visit the following day, June 11th. 1 was off the job site from VRD. On June 11th, at CPP and Conifer Realty, there were 2 workers from US Ceilings without ID. Both were compliant upon follow-up inspection the next day. On June 18th, at the Fairlife site, 1 worker on site from Zolads without ID, 7 workers from LaChase without ID. All workers were compliant upon follow-up on June 19th. On June 25th, Jay's Acquisitions 2 LLC project site, 1 worker from Boulogne without ID, 2 from FSI without ID. All workers were compliant on follow-up the following day. On June 26th, at the Sidley Redevelopment 2 LP project, 1 worker from RDF without identification was compliant on follow-up the next day. There was 1 instance of an out-of-area worker on a job site, June 24th, 1 worker from Sovereignty Plumbing from out of the local labor area, who is from the Brooklyn area. This was at the, Robin, remind me the name of the project. 587 LLC. This was at the 587 LLC project site. That worker was off the job site the next day. And at the same project site, there was one instance of an invalid identification at 587 LLC. Also from Sovereignty Plumbing, an invalid identification from Florida. And there was compliance with a local identification on follow-up the next day on June 25th. And Kevin and Loki Brill installed 3 new COMIDA signs in the month of June at the 49 East Avenue LLC site, at the McGuire Family Properties Incorporated site, and at the Galena Elm Grove LLC site at 275 Mile Crossing. And I will acknowledge, although it's not in our agenda for today, that while we don't have any local labor waivers to bring to the board's attention this month, Brian LaFountain, our local labor waiver processor, is here with us to answer any questions and address any concerns about waiver-related matters, just in case those questions and concerns come up.
Well,
Okay, thank you, Anna.
but before we move on,
Excuse me, please.
I still have a Loki Brill item I'd like to bring up before we move on.
I was just going to ask for that.
Thank you.
You're right out there. Troy?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I want to add on 6/18/2024, it was said that Kevin was going to go visit the flagship site. He did confirm my allegations of out-of-state workers of over 70. There were 72 on site. And I would also like to add that on July 1st, Loki Brill, there was 157 workers on site, 91 from out of state.
Can I ask Robin and perhaps Brian to talk a little bit about the waivers that have been granted so far and the numbers that Troy just cited, and whether the out-of-state workers were subject to waivers?
I can't really answer that right now without knowing more. Are you just commenting that, or do you want?
Well, I was challenged that my allegation that there was 72 workers on site with a local labor waiver that I never had an opportunity to review, nor get any workers locally on the site of 72, and there was a application for 65. And I wanted to know the process. If an applicant, we all know in the construction industry how many hours, how many manpower needs are going to be. If you're going to apply for 65, we anticipate 65. I've seen numbers from 77, today there's 75. Kevin reported on the 18th of June there was 72. I just want to know the process. If we apply for a local labor waiver of 65 and we don't go and follow that, what do we do? What are we going to do to put local people to work? After going out to that site, we have plenty of resources to assist Flagship to do that work. Multiple trades can assist, and I'm confused why, if I was given this opportunity to address this waiver, why we don't involve MAP or TRAX or RCCI, that we're spending millions of dollars to get pre-apprentices to be trained to do construction work, but we don't have a resource through the county of $36 million incentive to put local construction workers on a job. That's what the problem is with this situation at Flagship. So multiple moving parts here. My original question was, if you have a waiver for 65, why are there 77 on site?
So first of all, I want to acknowledge your concern. It's of course valid. It should be noted that our local labor policy, when a waiver is granted for a contract, supervisors and foremen who are on site as part of that contract are not factored into the overall number of workers that we consider as part of the approval. And it hasn't been practice up until it will become practice from henceforth it hasn't been our practice to report out on number of workers impacted by an approved waiver. And I'd love if I could ask Brian LaFountain to address Troy's concerns about this particular instance. So it's been brought to my attention that if there were 72 workers on site, that 7 of those workers were foremen and managers.
Yeah, good afternoon. So I can backtrack a little bit and answer a question that wasn't actually asked, but with regard to the documentation, I will take responsibility for Troy not seeing that documentation. I was not able to find in my email a message that was sent to Troy sharing that documentation with him. We had multiple tip-ups going on, and quite possibly I neglected to send the documentation to Troy ahead of time. That being said, the tip-ups is something that we've approved multiple times in the past. We know that we don't have any contractors locally with that certification to do that. So while Troy did not have a chance to see it, I'm not sure it would have affected the outcome. I guess that's a different conversation. But with regard to the number of workers, the number of workers on the exemption was in fact 65 that they requested. But historically, we don't typically audit to that number after the fact because there's just too many variables. If they decide to make a change to increase the pace with which they're trying to build, they might need more workers. If they slow down and stretch the timeline, they might need less. So we don't typically audit that number that is originally applied for against actual results. We just rely on Kevin Loki to let us know when there are people that are outside the area that are on that site. But I can't confirm that there were 65 in the original application.
Thank you.
I'm sure you have more questions. I'm here to answer any that I can.
Thank you. Rachel, can I put you in the hot seat and ask you to talk about what's within the parameters, within the scope of our local labor policy and our waiver process,
Right,
insofar as what information is shared with the board
Yep.
and with outside stakeholders?
Yep. So as the board may be aware, the waivers that are reported to you have been granted. So when Brian comes and reports a waiver, they have been granted. Brian uses his resources in the local labor community to go through his diligence, and it's intentionally done that we have a third party process the waivers. And then ultimate sign off is done by staff. The remedy under our policy, if there are out of area workers, is that they are removed from the site. Kevin has shut down sites. That's the immediate punitive recourse that the IDA has with our local labor policy. What Brian said is accurate. If we provide a waiver for a contractor, we do ask for their numbers, but we don't audit after the fact to see if they are using more than their projection of 65. The only time I believe that we've gotten into the numbers of the number of workers is if there's a promise to have local labor on the job. So if there was a promise to have 10 local laborers assist in the installation, all we tend to audit is the fact that they have those 10. They've fulfilled that obligation, but we don't go into how many out of area they bring in to do the work once the waiver's been granted. Is that helpful?
Thank you.
So to add to that, then we need to work on a process that if you're going to apply for 65 and you need 77, where and when does the opportunity to employ locally come into play? Especially on this situation where it's a basic trade that we can help put local folks on the site. And without me in the process of 45 days, getting an opportunity to vet this out, to even have the conversation with the contractor. Hey, we know that you have the certificate and it's a company certificate, not a technician journey person certificate. Why can you not utilize TRAX or MAP or RCCI for people that have OSHA 10 that are going to be safe, they're going to be on time, they're going to be dressed accordingly, and We have to help the community when we support training them to get them to work. We can train all day long, but if you don't put them to work, they're gonna take their training as just something they did. And it's not gonna give them a career. Now, I'd like to add on to flagship for the board. Is there another waiver for 40 people in the queue at flagship to do the rack system right now?
Not at this time. I haven't heard anything about that.
You haven't heard anything about the rack system of 40 people?
No.
The old
What do you
one?
mean rack system?
The rack system inside of Fairlife has I have it right here. I have a pending,
Is it the Italian
Is it the
company?
E80?
We have one that we previously processed and approved for the racking
racking.
system. Yeah.
right, so there's 40 more.
That has nothing to do with flagship though.
I think you're
That's
saying
not Fairlife,
Fairlife
but
and
it's not
flagship
flagship.
interchangeably.
Yeah.
Fairlife project.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's Fairlife.
Projects.
So right now, we're at 91, soon to be to 131, and we have 157 workers on site. We're not even hitting 50%. We're not hitting 50% of local labor on this site.
Well, if I may, Ann.
Go ahead.
I think that a lot of the installation happening right now are the approved waivers, and that there will be times when and I don't know the numbers, but this is foundation work, this is some of the, the tip-ups, so that work is necessarily happening first, and there's been waivers. I fully expect to see an increase in local labor as the project
Well,
progresses.
the county executive shared in the state of the county that this project was gonna have 500 construction workers. And we're gonna be close to have 250 local workers on that site. We're gonna struggle to get 250 people out of those 500 on site. If this waiver process continues and you can apply for 65 and bring whoever and how many you want, when does it stop? At what point do we as a board engage to say, hold on a second, did you vet this out? Have you called anybody locally? Have we exhausted all local resources to get county people, county residents on this site? It's gotta stop. We struggled at Amazon at 70. Now we have the largest job we've done in this town in I don't know how many years, I wanna say 30. $650 million project, and we're gonna lucky to see half of it. The blatant disrespect for the local construction community in this room has me disgusted, disappointed, and I am getting hammered by 22 other trades as representing the construction community. I have to answer. I want to know the mechanism of what we're going to do what we're supposed to. Industrial Development Agency.
So first and foremost, I want to acknowledge your concerns and thank you for your input. And I also want to push back a little bit on accusing staff and this board of being disrespectful to local labor.
No, staff is not, Madam Chair. Staff is not
Well,
disrespectful.
I want to ask Brian to talk through his process. I need to acknowledge the fact that in the immediate aftermath of the concerns related to the 65-person flagship tilt-up wall waiver, Robin and I made an immediate site visit to the Fairlife site. Kevin and Robin visited the site 2 days later. Kevin Loki is now performing weekly site visits, and Robin and myself are now connecting with Haskell and the Fairlife team on a regular cadence. We've scheduled calls similar to what we did with the Amazon project. So moving forward, we're certainly answering to the concerns about what's taking place at the site versus what is being reported out to the board. In the case of the flagship tilt-up wall waiver, the concern was raised, what kind of vetting can we do inside of 45 days? That waiver, it took 60 days to to process. And that was because of the due diligence that was going into, the phone calls that were taking place and the conversations that were happening. And with that, I would love to invite Brian to talk through his process. Both Robin and I have had an audience with the county executive in the last 24 hours where we talked through at length this process and answered his questions. We are meeting with some local labor folks in the next week to talk about some ideas around incorporating apprentices into our projects and processes and incorporating other stakeholders into our waiver vetting process. So we are very mindful of and respectful of the value and importance of local labor as part of our work as an industrial development agency. And Brian's an integral part of that. Brian's been with us for many, many years. He's a forensic accountant. He's an auditor. This is what he does. So, Brian.
No pressure, okay?
So, I mean, I'm not sure what's appropriate for this setting to get into this conversation. I mean, I don't know how far down the rabbit hole we want to go, but, I think we've been respectful to local labor. I think we've tried to make changes, or the board has tried to make changes in the governance, and changes in the warranty issues that we've had in the past by trying to get, apprentices on the job. I think the biggest challenge is you go through the due diligence, you make calls, you speak with people, you find out that in this instance, nobody locally has the certification on a contractor level to do it. So we grant a waiver for a company to come in, but then how do you legislate how many people that they curiously say, okay, we'll bring on 20 or 30 people to supplement our crew? How do you force that? Can you legislate that? I don't know, but if they qualified for the waiver and we approved it, at what point, I'm not sure the legislative process or the mechanics to force them to use local funds, right?
Wait a second. If an entity say they're going to bring in 50 people, and they bring in more than 50 people, you're saying that we don't have teeth in our process to address that?
No. It's not.
So before you go any deeper into your discussion, we need to do a process evaluation and look at how do we improve this process. Because if we have rules that are in place with no teeth, we don't have any rules.
Well,
So if that's what I'm hearing you saying. So if you're saying that,
I probably didn't articulate.
Oh, you're not, because if you're saying that we can give them a waiver for 50, and then they bring in 60, we can't do anything about it. Did I just hear that?
We didn't give a waiver for 50, we just.
No, I'm saying hypothetically.
Okay.
I'm not saying literally. But what he just said is that, did I hear it right? Did I hear it wrong? Did I hear it right?
What did you hear?
I just heard you say that if we grant them a waiver,
Yep.
and they bring in 25 people, or you grant them a waiver for 25, and they bring in more than 25 people, we can't do anything
That's
about
not
it.
the point I was making. My point
That's what
was,
you just said.
okay, can I restate it?
Brian
Is
restate it.
that what he just said?
No, so
Can I
if
restate
I could ask Brian to restate it once
Okay,
again, and
no,
also
but-
when we grant a waiver to a contractor for a piece of work, for a contract. We do not grant the waiver based on a number of workers performing work as part of that contract. Is that correct?
Why do we even put a
That's
number?
correct.
Why do we put a number in there then?
We started just as of when the Fairlife project started. We started this conversation about number of workers because there was conversation about the out-of-state license plates in the parking lot at the work site and speculation about the volume of outside workers versus local workers. And yes, in our policy, it does not state, so when Brian vets a waiver and does his due diligence and recommends or does not recommend something for approval, at no point do we really focus on number of workers performing the work. It's about the contract and the amount of money and the type of work that's being done. That's how the waiver is granted. And Brian can restate.
To summarize, so we have Flagship, 65 workers, there's been 72 on site. We're saying they do have 65, 7 of which are supervisors and foremen. So they are compliant if you assume we care about the 65.
Rachel, I understand that.
Just let her answer.
I know, no, but
It's tough when everyone's talking over
it's a lot
other
of, what I'm
people.
getting here is a lot of double talk, okay? So I understand Troy's frustration, because if you're saying we don't need to have a number here, why do we have a number?
Well, I think that that's worth talking about, and that's
Yeah.
where I was going next,
Okay.
is that what Troy has asked for, which I think sounds like a reasonable request, is when the workforce need goes above 65, above the projection, local labor should have an opportunity to supplement the workforce if they have the necessary qualifications. And we should vet that at the beginning. So if we've granted a waiver for 65, and while this hasn't happened yet, if we learn they need 10 to 20 more to get the job done, there probably should be an opportunity to go back to local to supplement the workforce the waiver has been granted for. So I hope that gets into a
The
positive
issue I have
direction.
is, as board member, I had information of what was accused as a allegation and proof, and it happened publicly, where my integrity is challenged, that I'm lying about how many workers on Flagship are from out of state. That's where I have a problem, because it went to questioning. I need proof, I need photographs, I need video. As a board member, that is not my obligation. I get information, I bring it to the board. I shouldn't have my integrity questioned and be accused that I'm lying, and we're gonna send Kevin out to the site today, which happened June 18th at our meeting, and everybody on site knew Kevin was coming out there, which is another issue. And they know every time Kevin's coming out there, which is a problem. But then Kevin confirms my allegation. Now, if I was to say something to anybody and challenge you, and I was proven wrong, I am going to take high ground, and I am going to take responsibility that, hey, my comment publicly, I apologize, I was wrong. So not only did I not get the emails that I was told that I was copied in on the 60 days, which even burns my ass even more, that this was a 60-day waiver and I didn't get communicated on it. This wasn't 10 workers, this wasn't 15 workers, this wasn't 40 workers, this was 65. That, in this community, for the construction world, throws 65 people to man your project. That's a problem. And we need to fix the policy. If you're gonna put numbers, then match the numbers. If you need more, come back to the board, come back to the community, come back to Brian, come back to Grant Malone, and say, I need this skill. Do you have anybody available to man this project? Never happens. And I'm saying never happens. This isn't Flagship. This is now my third project where I have not been included in the conversation. And the last big one was the rack over at Li-Cycle. The rack at Li-Cycle, that is, and we were there for the meeting, and all it was a rack you see at Lowe's and Home Depot every day. But there was nobody locally that could work on that project. I find that difficult. And if we're going to give incentive to somebody and they're going to request a waiver, there should be more teeth, stricter rules, something that if, hey, wait a minute, you're getting 36 million, what do you really want to do to lift up this community that you're getting your money from and you're getting your incentive? And I think as a board, we have all the power to do that. And we're making decisions for taxpayers. And right now you have some upset construction workers in this community. And you have upset workers that are dealing with the situation in Fairlife every day. And you said 72. I have a business manager here today that was out on site. There's 75. okay? I was told there was 77. Kevin confirms there's 72. This number is way above 65. And the 65 local labor waiver should include the foremen and supervisors. Especially when there's bilingual going out there with the safety and communication on site. There's folks that can't understand, and it's a safety issue. If there's somebody that we need to interpret to keep the communication safe, it's not happening right now.
Madam Chair, can I make a suggestion?
Certainly.
That we table this right now, bring this matter
To government.
to the governance,
That's where,
and
yeah.
do a deep dive on our process. And if there's opportunities for process improvements, let's look at that. Because I have a problem as a board member, that if you're saying that we have numbers and we make people, we put these numbers into a document, and then all of a sudden, those numbers mean nothing. I have a problem with that, and we need to evaluate the process and look for opportunities to improve this process. Right now, our discussion is this, it's a valid discussion, but this needs to be taken up at governance.
Well, we had apprenticeship language in with governance. Apprenticeship language was in. We just struggled on how to apply the apprenticeship language, so the apprenticeship language got removed.
Well, we have to.
Governance took it out.
But we also, but this is a discussion for governance, but we also have to have teeth.
And before we completely close it out, I just want to acknowledge the concerns and say I'm sorry that you feel this way, Troy. Speaking on behalf of staff and as a staff member, we conduct ourselves in as professional a manner as possible, and I don't use name calling as a practice on prep calls or in meetings. So I would challenge the notion of calling someone a liar. And we're simply looking for information. And as our local labor representative on the board, you're in a unique position where you are a stakeholder in this process, and we look to you for confirmation of claims. And when things are claimed, such as there are people sleeping at the work site and showering at the work site, we don't have anything to go off of aside from calling up the contractor at the site or paying them a site visit and asking if things are true. So we're looking for guidance and assistance from our partners in the local labor community to confirm that claims are in fact valid or not. And that was, I think, at the heart of there was some miscommunication. And based on all of the information that I received as the executive director and that Robin received as the deputy director, you were incorporated and communicated with as part of the flagship tilt-up wall waiver process. And as Brian pointed out, this waiver process took place in tandem with 3 other waivers that were in process simultaneously. And so wires perhaps got crossed, and Brian acknowledged the fact that he did not find an email that you were copied on, but Brian indicated to us that he was speaking with you or had spoken to you. So things fall through the cracks sometimes. No process is perfect, and we are looking for continuous improvement. But based on all the information that staff received, we operated above board in managing the flagship tilt-up wall waiver process. Brian followed his process. We followed our process. We trusted that individuals who needed to be communicated with throughout that 60 days were indeed in the loop, and we had no information to indicate otherwise. Everybody that's involved in this process conducts themselves in a respectful and professional manner. And so I want to state that for the record before we move on, because I don't appreciate, being accused of unprofessional conduct.
Norm, did you have anything else? Okay. Anyone else? Anything more for Brian at this point?
Appreciate you, Brian.
All right. Okay. All right. Next item on our agenda is the financial report, Greg?
Great. Financials halfway through our year. Balance sheet continues to remain strong. Our cash balances are down about $4.6 million from year end, primarily driven by our increase in our investments in our treasuries of about $3.3 million, and then about $1.2 million of supporting our net deficit year to date. Treasuries, almost $16 million. If we go back and look when we started in August of 23, we had purchased approximately 17 different notes and bills of approximately $21.5 million. Have redeemed 4 of those maturities since inception of about $6 million. That's the net of 15.9. And we continue to have maturities that, or investments that are maturing, ranging from July of 24 going all the way out to now January of 26. All the other balances on our balance sheet are in line with expectations. Fee income, we generated approximately $65,000 in June. Again, as we have discussed here in past meetings, we are trailing behind year to date, but anticipate that picking back up in the second half of the year. Specifically, we have a couple of projects that we anticipate closing in the last quarter of the year that'll catch us back up on our fee revenue. Interest, our earnings are up about where we budgeted from, mainly just because we have more excess cash and we're putting that to use with our investment strategy. Overall expenses are generally in line with budget. And like I said, I think through the next 6 months we'll make up that deficit and be able to turn that around based on some fee revenue coming in the last quarter.
If you look at year over year, year to date, June of 30th, 23 versus June 30th, 24, our fee income is up, our interest income is up, our total revenue is up year over year. So it's all moving in the right direction, and some of the expense items are because of program and community development initiatives that we've initiated during the year. So.
Yeah, all planned for, good points, right? Our workforce development program being the biggest part of that we anticipated spending a considerable amount of our fee income and our balance sheet and our resources into those programs. So again, we anticipate that picking up in the second half as those programs get going further and further.
Okay, any questions for Greg? Thanks for the update. All right, we are going to move forward with our applications, and the first one is 80 Linden LLC, and Anna's going to walk us through that.
Thank you, Ann.
Please.
80 Linden LLC proposes the expansion of the Rochester Ice Center located at 80 Linden Road in the town of Perryton. The Rochester Ice Center is considered retail under Section 862 of the General Municipal Law. In order to qualify for benefits, Rochester Ice Center demonstrated that the facility will attract a significant number of visitors from outside of the economic development region to train, participate, and spectate at events. The addition of a new 49,000 square foot third ice rink will serve as the home for numerous youth and collegiate programs, including St. John Fisher University's new hockey program, and feature amenities for players and fans alike. This $8.5 million project is expected to create 8 new FTEs over a 3-year period, in addition to 23 current FTEs that will be retained. 80 Linden LLC is seeking approval of a real property tax abatement, sales tax exemption, and mortgage reporting tax exemption. The benefit to incentive ratio is 6-to-1.
Thanks, Anna. We have Sean O'Donnell with us. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate it.
Please elaborate. Tell us more.
So I'm here representing 80 Linden Road LLC, the ownership group. Just a little bit of background. The new ownership group did take over the rink in December of last year. The new ownership group is brought up of my brother, Dan Prokopitz. We have a vision of growing youth sports, specifically hockey, here in Monroe County. The biggest problem that we are having right now in the county is that there's not enough ice time available. The demand is tremendous and the supply is limited. So this is a project that has been talked about with previous ownerships, even back to 2010. When the previous owners were looking at it, they were looking at it from a major cost, investment and the return. Our vision is to make this investment. We understand we don't make a lot of money owning an ice rink, but we know that this is something that will help our community by giving boys and girls the opportunity to grow their sport here in the Rochester community, but also is to attract people throughout the Northeast, Southern Ontario, to come to Monroe County and to enjoy the facility that we are proposing to be ready and open in the fall of 2025. So.
Okay, any questions from the board on that? All right, there was a public hearing held on July 15th. Were there any public comments from
No,
that?
there were not.
No? Okay, I'll ask you a few local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes.
Do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
Not sure yet. We are going to meet with the local labor contact in the very near future that relates specifically to the ice surfacing and the bleachers that are intertwined with it.
I see. Okay. Are you aware that any exemptions need to be requested 45 days in advance? Mm-hmm. Okay. The seeker process is complete, and now I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption, partial mortgage recording tax exemption, and a partial real property tax abatement. Moved by Rhett. Is there a second? Second by Lisa. Any other comments, questions? I'll take a vote on that. Joe Alaco is absent. Norm?
Yes.
Rhett?
Yay.
Lisa?
Yay.
Troy?
Nay.
Ann is a yay, and Jay is absent. So we have a motion that carries. Congratulations and good luck to you.
Appreciate it.
All right, next item, Indus Lehigh Station LLC.
Thank you. Indus Lehigh Station LLC proposes the construction of a 53,000 square foot Town Place Suites by Marriott Hotel in the town of Henrietta. This unique offering to Monroe County's hospitality landscape will cater to the demand for quality accommodations arising from tourism and events. This hotel has an arrangement with RIT's hospitality management program and will provide students with hands-on experience in the hospitality industry during construction and operation. This facility is considered retail under Section 862 of the General Municipal Law. In order to qualify for benefits, Indus has demonstrated that a significant number of patrons in the economic development region will travel to the area and stay at the facility. This $21 million project is expected to create 18.5 new FTEs over the next 3 years. At this time, the applicant is only requesting a sales tax exemption and mortgage recording tax exemption and plans to apply for a real property tax abatement at a later date. The benefit to incentive ratio is 27-1.
Thanks, Anna. And we have Jet Mehta here with us. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Tell us more.
Oh, you are, right? I did a pretty good job. My name is Jet Mehta. I'm the president and CEO of Indus Hospitality Group. The project was described an 89-room extended stay Marriott branded Town Place Suites. It would be the first Town Place Suites in Monroe County in the Rochester market, and an important part of a community's lodging inventory. Extended stay hotels are really important for construction projects, for people relocating into the community, for a variety of needs. We're very excited about the partnership we have in place now with RIT and MCC to really mentor and train people who want to students who want to get into our industry in a latest and greatest state-of-the-art new construction facility branded with a Marriott flag, so the Marriott technology, reservation systems, digital key, etc. We are, as a company, just excited about the prospects of bringing a institutional quality lodging asset of this nature to Henrietta.
Great, thank you. Questions from the board on this? Norm?
A question, not on this project, but how is your hotel downtown at the Strongwood? How's that going?
Just hit a year, so it's a little soon to tell. It took us about a year to work out the kinks and get settled down. We feel good about it. I would say it's doing what it should and performing at the level we anticipated and hoped for.
Good.
So very happy.
Any other questions? All right, there was a public hearing on July 15th. Any comments from that?
The town representatives were in attendance, but no comments.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask you for some local labor questions. Are you aware of our local labor policy?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Do you anticipate any local labor exemptions at this time?
We hope not. One that seems to come up with a facility constructed with concrete block and plank is the Spancrete. There is not a manufacturer of concrete floors in this region. And we have at times had to look to other vendors. But the concrete masonry block is easy, but the actual concrete floors are not manufactured in the 9 counties.
I see.
But we'll cross that bridge.
Okay.
Continue to investigate the project.
And are you aware that there's a 45-day notification?
We are, yes.
If that's going to be the case. All right. Great. The seeker process is complete. I'll now ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption and a partial mortgage recording tax exemption. Is there a motion? Moved by Norm, seconded by Rhett. Any questions, changes? I'll go ahead and ask for a vote on that. Joe is absent. Norm?
Yes.
Rhett?
Yay.
Lisa?
I have to abstain.
An abstention. Troy?
Nay.
Ann is a yay, and Jay is absent. So we don't have a successful motion. We're short one member, unfortunately, so.
We were expecting Joe to be with us today, and I'm not sure, he got tied up with something, so.
We can work with the applicant to review.
We'll work with the applicant to bring you back before the board.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I have to go, excuse me.
Okay, project modifications.
The first one is Ultrafill LLC. Ultrafill LLC is a subsidiary of JCS Processing Controls Incorporated. Received board approval in October of 2023 for a sales tax exemption for the renovation of 10,000 square feet in the Sibley Square building in the city of Rochester, which included office, warehousing, and R&D space. The applicant is seeking an increase in project costs of $2,420,338 as costs have increased due to structural modifications needed to accommodate the non-traditional layout of the space and an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31st of 2025. The total project cost is now $6,383,547, and the new sales tax exemption benefit is $218,214.
Thank you, Anna. All right, we'll go ahead and make the motion then on this modification. Motion to approve an increase in project costs and an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2025. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Rhett. Any other comments, questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next project modification is Raymond.
You're all done.
I was hoping I could talk till the ring stopped.
He was the applicant on all.
Thank you. All right, so the Raymond Corp.
Yes, the Raymond Corporation, a wholly owned subsidiary of Toyota Industries Corporation, located in the town of Henrietta, received board approval in December of 2023 for a sales tax exemption for the renovation of 1565 Jefferson Road. The applicant is seeking an increase of project costs of $2,854,000 as project costs have increased due to the decision to increase the scope of renovations to include restrooms, private offices, break rooms, and customer meeting areas. The total project cost is now $4,779,000, and the new sales tax exemption is now $369,120. The applicant is also requesting an extension through December 31st, 2025 to accommodate long lead times associated with items included in the project costs.
Okay, do we have anyone here representing this project?
Terry's on Zoom.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry, who is it? Terry?
Knows what the weather is. Right. There you go.
There we are.
Oh, shoot. Oh, wait,
Except
hold
we
on.
can't
We
hear
can't
him.
hear you, but it could be on our end.
Let me see.
Maybe not the rain. It's the rain.
I just said it's the
It's
weather.
the rain. Did I close all the windows?
Yeah, I can hear you guys fine, but
Is it what you're thinking? Are all your windows closed?
Thank you.
Okay. We have audio.
We do
Oh,
have
good.
audio? Okay, great. Any comments that you'd like to make for us on this increase in extension?
I will. And thank you for the afternoon, and a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your time. Originally, when the project started, we were going to develop an office area into kind of two pieces: a development section for our research folk, and then some office areas. As the design was developing, a decision was made to upgrade the office lobby section of this project. Due to the fact that we're going to have a lot of industrial leaders from all over the globe that will be entering this location as they look to buy technology for forklifts. So the original scope was just modify the cafeteria, modify the restrooms, just make them functional. And then we decided that because of the clientele that we have coming in here, that we'd want to create a kind of a best-in-class environment for that group of people. So we've upgraded finishes. Sheetrock walls are being replaced now with glass walls. Audio-visual equipment is being upgraded. Restrooms are going to be completely renovated. And that's really what was driving the scope of work change.
Okay, any questions from the board?
No.
All right. So I'll ask for a motion to approve an increase in project costs and an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2025.
So move.
Moved by Norm, seconded by Rhett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you guys very much.
Thanks for joining us. 20 Marina Drive, LLC. Anna?
120 Marina Drive LLC, a real estate holding company, is constructing a 22,000 square foot building for Di Pasquale Construction Incorporated and related entities. This new location in the town of Greece will allow all entities to be housed together and will accommodate present and future growth. 120 Marina Drive LLC was approved for a real property tax abatement, sales tax exemption, and mortgage recording tax exemption in June of 2022. The applicant was previously approved for an increase in project costs and is now seeking an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31st, 2025, as they are in the process of completing a build out on the building's first floor to accommodate a new tenant called Burn Boot Camp.
Thanks, Anna. I'll ask for a motion to approve an extension of the sales tax exemption through December 31, 2025. Moved by Lisa, seconded by Rhett. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. And we have Park Point as a modification. Almost everyone has, or they should have a copy of the modification summary on Park Point. Anna, you want to walk us through it?
Thank you, yes. In 2007, COMIDA approved a custom pilot agreement for the mixed-use and student housing development at the corner of Jefferson Road and John Street in the town of Henrietta. now known as Park Point. Since the closure of the Barnes & Noble bookstore at Park Point, RIT has leased the building from the current owner, ACCOP Park Point LLC. RIT now intends to purchase the former Barnes & Noble to house its financial services department. The town of Henrietta, the county, and the Rush Henrietta School District have each provided consent for the sale as required by the pilot agreement. The sale will result in the removal of the former Barnes & Noble building from the pilot agreement. However, ACCOP will continue to make payments under the pilot as if the Barnes & Noble building were still subject to it.
Okay, thank you. The motion on that, Rachel?
The motion is to approve the sale of the Barnes & Noble building and to execute and deliver the consent and agreement, which is the consent for the sale and also an agreement that the pilot payments will continue despite the sale.
Okay, thank you. Is there a motion on that? Moved by Rhett, seconded by Norm. Any questions, concerns? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. All right. Anna, you have a
Thank
number
you.
of executive
Thank you.
director updates
Yes.
for us.
First, I'd like to welcome Jim Sinal to the podium. Jim Sinal is the president and CEO of NextCore, which is a high-tech incubator accelerator affiliated with the University of Rochester system, also home to the Illuminate New York Accelerator, and home to the Embark program, a no-code computer software development boot camp workforce development program that COMIDA helped to fund in the past year and really bring back to life. It's been very successful thus far, and NextCore is seeking a no-cost extension of the contract as they've exceeded expectations in the program and also come under budget. So they're looking to extend the current agreement to the end of this year it was originally set to expire on August 31st. So I'd love to welcome Jim to share some comments on the Embark program and talk through this a little bit more and answer any questions, and then we can vote on it.
Great. Thank you very much. That was a great summary. As Anna said, the Embark program is a program that was set up to train county residents on how to become software developers using what's called no-code software development tools. So these easy to learn tools that can help them upskill in their current job or go on and get better employment somewhere else or a side gig, or even some of them might want to start their own companies as they learn some of these tools and skills. So we had a goal of training 50 people in what we called phase one. We ended up with over 80, which was great. 20 of those went on to the professional no-code development, which is just wrapping up. And we'll be having a graduation the evening of Tuesday, August 6th, which we'll make sure you all have invites to, because that will be exciting to celebrate them. And then, as I said, some of them are going on to create their own startups. We are under budget, primarily due to a couple of things. Our main instructor came in under cost, and we also thought we were going to have to spend money on providing these students with software platform licenses and tools, and we're able to get most of them for free. So we're under budget. So we'd like to use the remaining budget and extend the end date of the contract so we can continue to support these participants under the current budget amount.
Okay, thank you. Any questions by the board on that?
Yeah, where do we find instructors that are under budget?
I'm not telling you because we don't know.
Good point.
That's a really great
That's very
performance.
encouraging.
Yeah, very encouraging.
Awesome.
What you've done with it.
It's been a great program, and again, we announce the graduates and celebrate.
Perfect. Okay, any other questions? All right, I'll now ask for a motion to approve an extension of the contract with NextCore for the Embark program through December 31, 2024.
I'll make a motion.
Been moved by Lisa, seconded by Rhett. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, Monroe County Comprehensive Plan.
Thank you, Anne.
Anna.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is one that dates back to 2020, the first COMIDA meeting over which I presided as as acting executive director at the time. And then the newly elected county executive, Adam Bello, came before this board seeking financial support from COMIDA to update Monroe County's comprehensive plan for the first time in over 40 years. This board contributed initially $200,000. It was accepted by the Monroe County Legislature as a grant, and the funds went through a competitive RFP process. The county worked with a consultant to initiate the first update to the comp plan in over 40 years under the brand of Plan Forward. Parts of that initial contribution also went towards the first update to Monroe County's farmland protection plan since 1999, as well as the development of the county's very first active transportation plan. And so today, obviously, the elephant in the room here is that in 2020, the pandemic hit. In 2021, and into 22, effects of the pandemic were still being felt. We initiated this very important exercise at a really sensitive time, and a lot of dynamics were shifting. Costs simultaneously of all things were going up by a lot. And so it became very apparent, as well as, this administration was kind of getting their heads around dealing with the public health crisis, dealing with an economic crisis, and it really affected the work that for example, stakeholder input sessions that were necessary to this project in the first couple of years were interrupted because of the pandemic. So it became apparent that more work is needed on this draft, which has been in the works now for going on 4 years, and shouldn't take longer than another year to complete this exercise successfully. And the county, with the recommendation of the county executive, is seeking $150,000 from COMIDA to finish the comprehensive plan successfully. And here to speak about this today is my colleague Pat Gooch, who is a senior associate planner with Monroe County, planner by trade and an integral part of this project since day one. And Pat has put some materials together for the board on pages 176 and 177 in your packet, and can talk a little bit more in depth on where we are and where we hope to be.
Thank you very much, Anna. As Anna mentioned, I'm Pat Gooch. We have been working on this project since 2020. We have successfully completed the county's active transportation plan. So one thing I want to step back about is regarding the initial $200,000 that was granted to Monroe County for the comprehensive plan, a match for the county's active transportation plan, where we secured $150,000 from the Genesee Transportation Council, the metropolitan planning organization of the region, and another $5,000 that was used as a match for the county's agricultural and farmland protection plan update, which we are currently in the process of and expect to finish in early 2025. So we have leveraged through that initial $200,000, we've already leveraged essentially that same amount of money back, which has been fantastic in terms of being able to get work done that hasn't happened in Monroe County in a long time. So Anna mentioned that the comprehensive plan is an update. That is a stretch, so to speak. The last plan was done in 1979. There were many things in there that are still relevant, but we really had to go back to the drawing board and figure out where we needed to be, what we were looking to do as a county and as a community. We did that over the past couple of years, Initially, we had a focus on a broad focus, intentionally, because a comprehensive planning effort is meant to be large and wide and try to incorporate all that a community entails. So we focused on people and communities, economic and workforce development, ecology and environment, connected systems, and community health. So to speak, we focused on everything, which was too much. And so what we're trying to do now is refocus our efforts a little bit. And what we've decided to do in this initial closing period, is to focus on economic and workforce development, which is really the heart of what this board is looking to make sure that the comprehensive plan tackles, public safety, public health and wellness, and infrastructure. So we've taken a lot of those previous topics, but we've slimmed them down. One of the things that we're worried about with our current effort so far is that we'll create a book as big as the Bible or the UCC, and it won't do us any good. It will sit on a shelf, people won't read it, we won't have an actionable document to move forward. So what we need to do is focus a little bit further on each of those 4 focus areas that are the 4 pillars of the county at this point. We intend to do so over the next year by addressing some that we didn't touch very heavily. So public safety was something that was not focused on very heavily in our previous effort, so we plan to drill down a little bit more on that. We focus on economic and workforce development, but we have noticed through the community engagement period, and I'm remiss to note that during that period, we had the opportunity to speak with thousands of citizens of Monroe County. We attended 50 pop-up meetings going to places where they already were, rather than having events specifically for this. We went to farmers markets, we went to festivals, we went to churches, we went to a variety of places to get people where they were, so that way we would hear from people who normally wouldn't want to speak to a county government entity out and about. We held 3 public meetings where we heard from approximately 100 people there. We held 5 stakeholder meetings where we invited over 200 different stakeholders on each of those 5 focus areas, and we had an hour with them to talk about these topics. That, of course, as you can imagine, an hour for each of those topics was not enough. We had 6 steering committee meetings for the members who attended, and then we had 4 meetings with municipalities in Monroe County, where we invited the elected leaders, planning managers, economic development managers, and other people who were trying to make sure that their communities were the best versions of themselves. What we plan to do in the next year, if we are fortunate to be granted this additional sum, is to refocus on those 4 pillars. We need to create additional narrative work related to public safety, limited stakeholder engagement. We've done a lot of that, as I mentioned, so we don't intend to do too much more, but there is a desire to do some, of course, at the end, which we previously envisioned in the original scope, so we will continue to do that. And we will focus on public health and wellness, and then tighten up the document and make sure that it is an actionable document that is something that is helping Monroe County move forward and is something that we can use as, and ideally, we will have a document that works for us and will be updated in close fashion rather than 40 years from now. And that is one of the things that we learned as well. Because we had so much time in between, there was more work to do than we originally anticipated. That is not true of the Farmland Protection Plan. We've done one of those more recently, so that is more true of an update. Some of our other planning efforts as well. And lastly, the county planning office is not the only office that engages in planning, and we've noticed that our budget for this project was lighter than some of those other efforts that are countywide, focused, and technical. And so we're trying to bring this budget in line with that to make sure that we have a document we're proud of, and it's on par with those other documents, like the Climate Action Plan and the Active Transportation Plan, of course, that we completed here in the county. With that, I will be happy to answer any questions about the project and the ongoing effort.
And you're asking for more money?
That is correct, yes.
Yes. 150,000, actually.
Up to 150,000. We hope to be less than that, but we want to make sure that this is the last ask and that we are able to complete this within that budget. We anticipate it will be closer to 100,000, but we need to verify that.
Okay. Norm.
Okay. 2 things.
Yeah, of course.
First, if you can give us just an example of everything that was spent with the section or the pot of money that you received from COMIDA. But the bigger question I have is that you talked about some key result areas, but I didn't hear you mention anything about education and how this plan would enhance or work with education and how we improve our educational outcomes, K through 12, in the entire county, which the city happens to be part of. And if you have a comprehensive plan, if you don't talk about education, I think you're missing something in regards to the plan.
So regarding the second question, let's start with the education. The education is woven throughout the plan, but as you know, planning or education within a county is left to local municipalities.
I'm aware of that.
So there are challenges with how we address that, but one area that we are purposely trying to address it is workforce development, of course, at the higher level. Through the community engagement, we did invite all the schools of higher education superintendents who also serve in the steering committee to make sure that education was something that was woven throughout the plan. That is an area that we believe can be a part of this, but there are some, of course, issues with the county dictating to local municipalities how their education platforms work.
I'm not telling you to dictate. I'm saying there has to be an emphasis on education in your plan, or the plan will be flawed. Because you have an impact on all types of deliverables for education, and how you manage your roads, how you deal with your environment, how you put your streetlights in, how you deal with your solid waste management. That all impacts educational outcomes. So I think if you don't have that as one of your key result areas, you have a flawed process, and you have to put that out the forefront, because our systems, especially in the city, are not doing justice for our children.
Remind me of your first question.
How did you spend the first $200,000?
Yes. So, as I mentioned, 15,000 of that was used for other planning efforts.
Okay.
So, 10,000 specifically was used as a match for the active transportation plan, which was completed for $169,000 in the latter part of 2023. So that's 10,000. 5,000 was used as a match for the Ag and Farmland Protection Plan update, currently ongoing. That is a total planning effort of $60,000. And then lastly, the remaining $184,000, there's a little bit left over within that chunk, but of that $184,000, that was used on consultant work. So we engaged with EDR, Environmental Design and Research, out of Syracuse and the Rochester office, and they have been going through that process since 2021 until 2023-24, and that was in community outreach and engagement, drafting the initial portions of the plan, working on the steering committee process and all of those other items that go into the planning process. We have a initial draft that is not where we want it to be based on what we mentioned previously, and that is the total sum of the approximately I think $170,000 that has been spent.
Okay, any other questions by the board? All right, we'll go ahead and call for a motion of the addition of the $150,000 towards the long-range planning effort, and I'll ask for a motion for that. Been moved by Lisa, seconded by Rhett. Any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Approved, opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you very much. Good, thorough update. Anna, do you have any more items?
One item before, and we have one additional matter that's that we want to discuss before I wrap up after I wrap up executive director discussion items. But anybody in the room who listens to WXXI in the not too distant future, if you're a listener, you may hear reference to Monroe County Economic Development, to the County of Monroe Industrial Development Agency on the airwaves. We're working with WXXI on some marketing efforts as we look to bring more businesses and workers to our doorstep and share more information about the programs that we have to offer. In particular, the microloan program that we administer by way of MCIDC. We're really looking to spread the word about that. So we have a short-term contract with WXXI on some advertisements, I guess, for lack of a better term. And Allison, anything to add to that, the dollar amount?
If you want to listen for it, I can send you the radio schedule of when you're gonna.
Oh, sure.
Play, but
Yeah.
I can't hear her.
She said she can send the radio schedules when they're going to be airing the
great.
the shout outs to COMIDA and Monroe County Economic Development.
Tune in and listen. Great, thanks for your work on that, Allison.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. And that's it for executive director discussion items. I turn it over back to the chair.
Okay, so I understand we're trying to get the owner of the Indus Lehigh Station, Jet Meta, to come back. now that we have?
We don't
I don't know if
actually
he's
need
gonna
the-
come back.
We
but
don't need the applicant to
Joe
come
was
back.
held up by weather and trying to get here.
Okay,
We would, I think, like to re-entertain the motion now that
Okay.
we have Joe
Okay.
here. We'll record Troy's vote in the minutes as no on the first vote, absent on the second vote, because he did depart, but Joe should have been here for the vote and unfortunately was not.
okay.
Yes, I apologize.
That's okay, Joe, I don't mean to make an example.
No, it's fine.
Just want to
It's
get this
fine.
project
I-
taken
was
care
it
of.
I
a
got
flood
held up
out
with work
there,
and then
or-
I ran in.
No problem.
It's raining. It was unbelievable.
It was all
Yeah.
cars stopped on the expressway.
Yeah.
Stopped.
Gosh, wow, wow.
It was unbelievable.
It
Wow.
stopped?
Cars stopped on the expressway.
Wild.
And you're going and you can barely see them.
Right.
So you're going around.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
It's ridiculous, but yeah.
So we
happened
won't
to me
hold that
the
against
other
the
day.
applicant. The weather, he did not bring the weather.
Yeah.
That happened, I think it was Sunday, I was going to Graceton, it was terrible, everybody with blinking lights and pulling over and, going like 5 miles an
Yeah,
hour.
and now it looks like it just stopped. I mean,
Yeah.
It was,
Sun's gonna come back
I
out.
was worried about it. Did I shut the window? Get the pool ready.
Oh dear.
but again, I
You'll find
apologize.
out.
I was
So
gonna,
Norm left
I was
because of
gonna
his windows.
text you and tell you I couldn't make it
That's
at
all
all.
right.
But yeah.
Thank goodness you made it, thank you.
So,
Okay, so we're still alive.
Yes.
Meeting is in session.
Yes,
was 80 Linden voted on?
yes, that passed.
Okay.
Yes.
So we'll go back to the Indus.
Okay.
So, do we need to revisit?
Yeah, we'll redo the whole
Okay.
asking
All right.
motion and everything
Anna,
again.
you want to walk
Of
us through
course.
Indus?
Yes.
Lehigh Station LLC.
Indus Lehigh Station LLC proposes the construction of a 53,000 square foot Town Place Suites by Marriott Hotel in the town of Henrietta. It's a unique offering to Monroe County's hospitality landscape that will cater to the demand for quality accommodations arising from tourism and events. This hotel has an arrangement with RIT's hospitality management program and will provide students with hands-on experience in the hospitality industry during construction and operation. The facility is considered retail under Section 862 of the General Municipal Law. In order to qualify for benefits, Indus has demonstrated that a significant number of patrons from outside the economic development region will travel to the area and stay at the facility. The $21 million project is expected to create 18.5 new FTEs over the next 3 years. At this time, the applicant is only requesting a sales tax exemption and mortgage reporting tax exemption and plans to apply for a real property tax abatement at a later date. The benefit to incentive ratio is 27-1.
Thanks, Anna. So any other questions from the board on this item? Okay. We've already asked the representative about the local labor questions.
Yes.
We've also received a report from the public hearing on July 15th. We also know that the seekers process is complete.
Yes.
So I'll ask for a motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption and a partial mortgage recording tax exemption.
Can I make one comment before we make the motion?
Yes, sure.
So I'm in support of it with mortgage tax and sales tax. I would not be interested in a property tax abatement in the future. So I just want to make sure
Yep.
I mentioned that to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. So I'll take a vote on that. And Joe?
We need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We already said the motion. Motion for inducement and final resolution approving a sales tax exemption and a partial mortgage recording tax exemption.
So moved.
Moved by Norm.
Second.
Seconded by Joe. All right. I'll take a vote on that. Joe?
Yes.
Norm?
Yes.
Brett?
Yay.
Lisa?
Abstain.
Abstain. Troy's absent.
Done.
Ann is a yay. And Jay is absent. So the motion carries. Just in time. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Okay, any other matters to come before the board? Hearing none. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn and to also say that our next meeting is August 20th, 2024 at noon. Okay.
Motion.
Moved by
Second.
Joe, seconded by Norm. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.